Hello, I'm Sally Ann Airy, and welcome to Fearless Forward, the podcast that asks leaders how they've faced their fears. Today I'm in conversation with a wonderful female entrepreneur whose business is her passion, her vocation, and her happy place. It literally runs through my veins, she says. Armed with a mission to make shopping fun, Emma Draper and her team of 15 committed joy givers have turned her fashion store Velvet on the south coast of the UK into a growing phenomenon. Surrey and Sussex Businesswoman of the Year 2 years ago, and winner of Boutique Magazine's Star Award, Fashion Independent of the Year last year, as you'll hear in this podcast, 2025 is the year Emma and her Velvet team literally go from strength to strength. So where did it all start? I think it's fair to say that entrepreneurship and hard work are quite simply in Emma's blood. Her father, for one, was not going to let his lack of formal education stop him. Working 24/7 his whole life, he became a highly successful businessman, teaching himself to read and write and learning how to talk to anyone and everyone about anything. And her mother, working just as hard, built her own successful retail business. Now at 82 years of age, she's still a vital member of Emma's management team. Forever obsessed with fashion and fascinated, she says, by women, what they wear and how they present themselves, Emma began staging money-making fashion shows while she was still at university. Then, after a few conventional jobs in event marketing and PR, she started a buy-to-let property business in London. In the year 2000, she visited Brighton and saw lots of well-located, nice-looking shops selling nothing she wanted to buy. So she and her mother opened a small shop. And when it sold out in 3 days, she knew she'd found her vocation. She's never looked back. But not without some considerable personal and professional challenges along the way. In this conversation, Emma shares what she's learned from them about surviving and thriving as a female entrepreneur.
Oh, Sally Ann, it was like everything had just been going along normally. Running a business with my husband at the time, 3 boys, the youngest was 6. Life was fine, just so busy. One of my children is neurodiverse, so it's quite full on. We had 35 employees and 4 stores at one point, but the recession was tough for us and we had to downsize and sadly make a lot of people redundant. That was a very tough, horrible lesson. And I think that sort of knocked me back a bit. And then having 3 young boys, family life was tough. And I think I got myself lost. I lost my spark. I found it very difficult to work out how to not feel parental guilt if I was at work. And I loved working. I've always loved working. And I think I struggled with the guilt, with young children. Actually, now they're just super proud of me and they don't really remember when they were that little. So, it's a wasted emotion. I'm always telling young mums, new mums, don't sweat it because they probably won't remember it. I managed to juggle it, but I had lost myself and I just felt a bit of a shell just going through each day and not having a goal, not having plans, just day by day surviving. And I don't think that was good for me, being an ambitious person.
So you felt a little aimless?
I don't think it was aimless because I've always been a busy, proactive, but I didn't quite have the right goals and I didn't have the energy for them.
So not so much aimless as the aims not being clear enough for you?
Yeah, they weren't clear enough. I didn't have a strategy, a big forward plan.
So you were in survival mode for a bit?
I was in total survival mode, coping. And then my marriage very suddenly fell apart. Absolutely not prepared for any of it. There were signs, but, when you've been married forever, there are, but not what I expected. So the long and short of it was my husband left. And my world was absolutely shattered. And I had no idea how to be a single parent to 3 boys, which I would say now is the biggest challenge of my life. And still, quite frankly, still is. But then the fear of raising them was enormous. Then the next fear came in when, you're going through a divorce and financials. And I was like, I can't afford my house. I can't afford my house. I didn't want any disruption for the boys. They were struggling with the divorce and, growing up because, my eldest was 14 at that point. So it was a very difficult age to have your parents split up. So there was this enormous struggle. I thought, I just want the security of the home. And I started to think that I really wanted to support them through life and, help them set them up in their homes or pay for education if needed. And I was in no way of that situation.
Did this become this extraordinarily devastation in a way to your life? Everything that you thought your life was going to be suddenly changed overnight. Deepest shock, anxiety for the future, huge sense of responsibility as a single parent, feeling that everything was on your shoulders, and the opportunity. And I know it sounds a bit cliched, doesn't it, to say that in every challenge there's an opportunity, but I think it may be true if we can see it. And it sounds as if you may have, in the end, when you were able to, you may have just seen that and turned, moved things forward.
I tell you what it was, Sally-Ann. I was sitting in bed. I'd got the kids to bed. It was exhausting. I mean, they did go and see their dad, but I felt like I was taking the brunt of everything. And I opened another bottle of wine, and there'd been too many bottles of wine. I wasn't sleeping. I looked terrible. I was trying to manage everything at work. And I opened another bottle of wine. I thought, no, Emma, you're stronger than this. You're better than this. You have got this in your power to sort it out. And then I had like a sort of weird epiphany where I just started writing sheets and sheets of paper on how to change the business to make considerably more money, to change my life, to change the boy. I mean, I didn't know if it was going to work, obviously, at this point, but I just drilled down into every part of the business, the team, the marketing, the stock, the service, everything. I wrote this enormous 4-page, I drilled it down to 4 pages. And then literally the next day went into my team and said, what do you think? And full credit to them, because it was changing everything. They were like, let's do it.
As if they were waiting for you. Do you think they were waiting for you?
I think they were really sad, because I think as a leader, if you're not there in your head and heart of a small business or a big business, it trickles down. And I think the motivation was quite low, and I think nobody knew where they were going or where the business was going. So I think they were keen to do it.
I can imagine they needed you, much as they could understand the position you were in and wanted to support you. I have no doubt of that. And they were probably desperate for the direction that you then gave them.
Yes, I think it was. And they were a bit scared of change. Personally, I love change. I can embrace it, and it gives me an incentive. But I understood they were scared and nervous of change. But I think then my leadership skills came into play, and quite quickly everybody was massively on board. And then the hard work started.
Then the hard work, of course. So you say you enjoy change. I'm guessing you might say you enjoy positive change, right?
Yes, positive change. Not necessarily divorce, but I have to say, 8-9 years on, it changed me remarkably for the better. A newfound confidence and skill set, and it's been a overwhelming success so far. So, but at the time, yes, I needed positive change, and it gave me that spring in my step. It gave me something to write. They need me. I can do this. Huge why.
And it sounds as if you put yourself in the centre of this, front and centre, actually. You took full charge of your situation and moved from what sounds a little bit like victim, if I may put it that way. Is that fair?
Oh, I did feel a victim. Absolutely, Sally-Ann. Yeah.
And then you turned that around. And how interesting that it was that second bottle of wine or whatever that looked you in the eye almost, did it?
Said, you're drinking way too much of me. Get a grip, woman.
And epiphany is epiphany, right? What matters is that however it comes, let's be grateful. And so at that time, can you remember what your fears were?
Losing my home, losing my business, losing the only source of income I had, if I didn't get it right. I think that was quite powerful. I just thought, well, if it all goes wrong, I would obviously, my team would be the worst thing, letting them down. But I could have got a job. I could have gone and lived somewhere else. It's much cheaper. Nothing. I could fix that, but I just thought, no, I want this to work. But do you know what? I sort of knew it was going to work. I'm a great believer in backing yourself.
Well, also, you knew enough as well. I've been highly experienced. You've been doing this for a long time. You knew enough to know that if you did these certain things, there was a very good chance it would work out, right? So it was risky and yet also deeply pragmatic, I should think. And, you talk about the fear of losing home, fear of losing business and so on. I just want to probe a little bit more there, because they're the practical outcomes of things going wrong, aren't they? The loss. And then the fear, I wonder, is the fear then of something which is slightly worse than that, which is, I guess, not being able to take care of the people you love. The fear of letting everyone down. The fear of being destitute, extremely unlikely in your case, but, the fear of that. And then this sort of deeper rooted fear of not being enough for everyone who needs you. That, you know what I mean? I'm sort of drilling down a bit here, but does that resonate with you, or am I putting words in your mouth?
No, all that absolutely resonates. And I think fear of not being enough was something I found really challenging, because I felt very stretched. I mean, I still do sometimes, to look after my family and my team and the business. It did stretch me, but it also gives me energy. No, you're right with all those things, Sally-Anne. You're absolutely right. But weirdly, that sort of pressure gave me more energy, because I had to look after my health as well better so I could do all these things. So the energy that I created from being more dynamic, ambitious, taking the risk and looking after myself meant that I pretty much hope I was a better mum at the time as well, and a better businesswoman, better team leader.
Absolutely. And, you're front and centre. If you don't take care of you, you can't be front and centre in the way you'd like to be. So you had 8 people at that time, thereabouts. What did you do? Do you remember what happened?
Yes, absolutely. So I got rid of 50% of my suppliers, who I'd been dealing with for 15 years, some of them. So that was scary. I completely reworked the recruitment process, the customer service process, the structure of the team. Social media was really coming into effect then, but still early days. And we were like, let's embrace this. I actually redecorated most of the store myself. I can't imagine doing that now. Changed all the displays, heavily invested in one of our suppliers, our clothing suppliers, that was doing really well at the time. I think we changed everything, absolutely everything. How we looked, how we served people, how we looked after our customers. We just went, everything was like an extra edge. I'm a big fan of Olympians and how it's so, like the British cycling team, they always had this thing about every tiny little thing makes a difference. And that's what I did. Every tiny little thing in the whole, how the business was run, we changed it mostly for the better. Well, that was the plan. And it really, really worked bit by bit.
So your mission at the heart of all of this obviously wasn't change for change's sake. It was positive change to earn more money, to feed and clothe your family, to keep your house, to keep your business. So what was at the heart of this agenda? Not the why so much that you've described, but what I'm getting at is, what was the purpose? What kind of business did you want to build?
I wanted a very impressive business. I wanted to be the best at what I did. I'm quite steely sometimes, and I think I'd lost that in, parenting young boys and marriage that didn't work. I think I'd lost some of my former self, and this really brought it back. And I am ambitious. I still am ambitious, and I think I did a lot of work to get this steeliness back in and, rebuild the woman I was. And even I'm a great believer in really going for things. I found out a lot of my early documents and all these flip charts I'd done for the team. And on one of them, I put at the top, I want to be the best independent fashion store in the UK. I won't lie, I'd sort of forgotten about that. And in November, we won that exact award. And it was an amazing night. I was just absolutely, Mayfair was absolutely thrilled. And one of my team came up to me, do you remember that was on your flip chart? And I was like, oh, yes. And I didn't cry at the awards or anything, but when she said that to me on the shop floor, I was like, wow.
And had you forgotten that you'd written that?
I'd forgotten I'd written that. I knew I wanted to be brilliant, but I'd forgotten I'd actually written it, and I've found it since.
And it happened. So having set that very clear intention, even though you'd forgotten the words, the intention was there. It's been lived every day.
Oh, it's a lot of passion. I'm extremely passionate. I think it's all the little details, the love that's poured into your business. I think if you have a business and you really love it, it's the key.
And you do more than that, don't you? I mean, I'd love to go into more of the detail of how you got from there to here, and we will in a moment. But I'm also aware that you do more than that. I mean, you use your business as a force for good, don't you, in so many ways. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Well, certainly now we've got there's 16 of us now, and I feel like we're an amazing team. I think I look after my team really well, and that's testament that they've all been there forever. But we also do a lot of good I think we do in the community. We raise a lot of money. We do a lot of pre-loved stuff. And I think we're on just shy of 40,000 meals we've provided for a local company called Fair Share, who in our region, get out meals to people that can't afford them. So that's a beautiful thing. 40,000 meals feels like our target's 50,000. We're on our way. Yeah, so then through my business, I've been able to support my family, and, my mum, and just also it's like Velvet is now a community thing. We have so many locals that just love us and they come in, and I always have instilled into the team that loneliness is a big problem in our world. So it often, there's some elderly ladies that just come in for a chat. Fine, stop what you're doing and talk to them. Young mums or people that are suddenly single. That's a very important thing, that people come in and they can just have a chat. We feed most of the dogs in the area. We do all these little extra things. We do an extra mile program, we call it. So we give away 20 presents a week. So if you mentioned you've had a bad day, or your birthday, or you're a bit sad, we do these things, and it has become like a community hub as well as a fashion store. And I'm there to pay the girls' wages, pay my wages, and sell fashion. And well, we do now. I've quadrupled the turnover since that day. So I would say that's pretty good.
It's pretty damn good, isn't it? And, I can testify, not living in Brighton and not going to Brighton very often, but coming into your shop, and it was just such a visceral feeling of, you could feel it as you walked in, the very clear, lovely, warming and welcoming environment. I mean, very special. I can still feel it.
I just want people to walk in at all times and feel, that feeling, but also feel really welcome and
Well,
comfortable.
indeed. And that does encourage one, speaking for myself, to buy. I mean, so it makes good business sense. Of course it does. We all know that, I hope. And it brings more joy. So everyone's enjoying it. As you say, your staff has been with you forever. It's a community. You're generating more than just sales, which are important and keep you all going.
I hope so. And I think people have a deep love for the store. We're 25 years old this year, which is very exciting. And not only that, I have customers travel all over the country now. We have a contingency from Scotland that like to come down every season. I love them.
Amazing. Well, and that's the other thing that I find very interesting is that you don't do anything online, do you?
No, we have tried it a few times, but for a business model for us, it just doesn't work because we import all our fashion from Denmark. We have some UK brands, but mainly I'd say 80% is from Denmark. They have beautiful clothes. It's all good price, like Marks and Spencer's prices. So our USP is that we have different clothes arrive every week. So we have short runs of things. So if you were to buy something from Velvet, you really wouldn't see it on anyone else. So our customers love it. There's always something new or something they can, there is always something new. So I think the point of that, by the time we have it and sold it, it's gone. So to have it online isn't a thing for us because it would go too quickly. Having said that, we have a lot of basics that everybody needs. And we've chosen specifically not to do that because it's all about the experience in my shop. You come in, we all have time for you. You can try on as much as you like, take as long as you like, or you can go quick dash and we'll help sort it out for you. You can't do that online. We all know we're all different shapes. It's very hard to buy the right fashion online. And also the returns are very difficult as a business process. You lose a lot of money. So we've tried both, and this is better for my shop, my community, and also it's more profitable.
Yes, makes total sense. And if people want your stuff, they have to come in person.
Yeah, and that's why we call ourselves a destination store. And they do, they travel.
And I'm guessing as well, and I've seen it and felt it in your shop, that because you give so much, you do get a lot back. I mean, it's reciprocated, isn't it?
Oh my God, my team are, they're just so wonderful. I've got an MD now, so I've handed the day-to-day running of the business over to her. She's been there 15 years, Gemma. She's absolutely incredible. So my warehouse manager, Helen, I think it's 18 years. The other manager, 10 years. There's a management team of 5. They've all been there forever. And it's cheesy, but we are family. We spend so much time together. And when people say, "Oh, my colleagues, my family," well, that they are. They're like my daughters, but different.
Well, I love the fact that it disproves what appears to be a rule that, family's separate. Who cares?
Totally against all the advice,
Against all the advice, all the rules,
everything.
marvellous. You've broken them and you've proven that in certain circumstances, and it's very contextual, it can be absolutely right.
It's worked an I love them. I love them like my family. And we've all got, the management, we've got each other, and it's a beautiful thing. And, I'm sure at some point people will move on, but they'll still be in our family. They have no choice.
Of course, I mean, it's an absolute given, right? And at the centre of all of that is trust, isn't it?
Trust. Yeah. I mean, I hope I do look after my team, financially and emotionally, and they pay me back in spades.
Well, look, I just want to take a moment to celebrate this. I know you're excellent at celebrating. As you said, you note all of the achievements, and I know you're marvellous at that. But I want to just, congratulate you, Emma, on everything you've achieved, because I do have a sense of how hard that is from my own life experience. And now you're getting bigger and better, aren't you? I mean, tell us about what's happening next at Velvet.
Oh my God, it's amazing. So we've got the big shop floor now. It's 2,500 square foot, but it's going to be a hell of a lot bigger. So I've been dreaming about this for a long time, and it's been a year and a half in preparation. We have a sort of a larger showroom on the lower ground floor, but we're making it literally 3 times the size. So we are knocking down, I think it's 15 walls downstairs, these little old stock rooms. We're making this enormous new space downstairs. So the shop's going to be massive on the lower ground floor, and we are launching menswear, which is so exciting. So I've got an army of builders in for 4 or 5 months. Yeah, it took a year with structural engineers, architects, building regs. I've learned a lot this year, Sally Ann. Huge investment, but I'm again taking a risk, but I'm quietly, happily confident with this one. We're working with three menswear brands, again from Denmark. It's all ordered, it's all bought, it's very exciting. We're obviously recruiting. Lovely family business. My eldest son is coming back to run the menswear because he currently works for Marks and Spencer's menswear as a manager, retail in the blood. So the team are excited about that. But yeah, we're recruiting, and it's a whole massive new chapter, which is very wonderful. We've got this big new warehouse as well, and that's all running superb. And it coincides beautifully with being 25 years old. So it's going to be a big party this year.
Big party. When do you expect to open that floor?
May, all being well.
Amazing. And I'm assuming, because you're super smart, that this is in response to demand?
Yeah, so, well, a lot of customers know that our brands also have menswear brands, and they often asked about it. We have a lot of men in the shop who buy for their wives or girlfriends or daughters, or they're in there with their partners and they're just a bit bored sitting on our sofa, and we feel like we can occupy you.
Indeed.
We are launching more women's wear down there, so menswear will only be but 25% of the business to start with. And the brands themselves, they'd actually asked me to open stores on the South Coast for them because they wanted, someone who knew their brands really well. But I was a bit cautious with menswear because I know women's wear very well. But the more we've talked to our customers over the last few years, we're like, yes.
And how marvellous that you had the real estate right there. You didn't have to move.
Well, yes, I didn't know if it was physically possible. The building's going to be held up with a lot of steel, but again, I was relentless in making this happen.
I'm seeing a small door in the form of an idea that then just gets wider and wider. This door opens and the light comes in and it all sort of starts to happen.
Well, this is it. I really have always dreamt of having a department store. This was always my dream, and it's just not possible. Both sides, both other stores to the side of me, I've approached, and they don't want to sell or anything. Couldn't go up, so there's only one other way. That's to go down. So couldn't go behind, but you never know. In future, I might be able to expand even more because I really want the whole shebang, the whole department store.
So that's your ultimate aim, is to run a department
That's the
store.
aim, Sally Ann. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, watch this space, Emma.
Absolutely.
So when you think of the span of your life, Emma, the amazing gifts that your parents gave you through their own, as I mentioned in the introduction, entrepreneurship's in your blood, all of the things that you were born with, the life that you've chosen, the things that you've done. What is your key to a successful and well-lived life?
Oh, I think it's balance. I absolutely adore my boys. They are my world. But I know I'm a better mum if I'm doing my things too. I've learned maybe the hard way that your body isn't, it can break down. So I've learned, for me, a balanced life is time with friends, family, health, sport, and relationships. Relationships are the key to absolutely everything in business, in personal life. So I need the relationships with my team. I need the relationships with friends and family. I'm very grateful I've been really successful financially now, and that gives me freedom to travel if I want, do things, help my children. I built a property business, which has been, another fascinating learning curve, but that's really been pretty successful. And I think for me, a balanced life is trying to make sure all these pots of my life are fueled and just successfully. It doesn't always work out. Oh no, there's weeks when it all goes wrong. But I think 51 years old, I've realised that I've got to be healthy and happy in my own heart, and then I'm much better mum, parent, team leader, friend, confident, balance, still learning it, Sally Ann.
And accepting that there are going to be some hard weeks or even longer at times.
Oh gosh, the perfect life doesn't exist, does it? Because that would be rubbish.
Well, yes.
But the challenges, the mistakes, the fails, it's just cracking on the next day. I always think what I'm super stressed about one day, I probably won't care that much about in 3 months' time. So
it's a helpful thing to remember, isn't it, in those moments that are really tough? It's seeing clearly enough to see what really matters in that moment, because some aspect of it might matter, might need our attention, might need resolving, of course, but the stress part is never going to help. We all do it, but it's being able to step back. If we can possibly step back and see it for what it is, and as you say, remember that in 3 months' time we'll have forgotten, it is a helpful thing. And you just reminded me, Emma, and perhaps we might just touch on it here, that from the health side, you certainly know what you're talking about, don't you, when you talk about looking after your health? Because you, unfortunately, were one of the people who had long COVID, didn't you?
Oh, it was such a shock, Sally Ann. So, yes, I was a runner, an ultra runner. That might give you an idea of my temperament. That I like to do things. I like to do them well or go a long way. And I was super fit. I used to run very early every morning before the boys wake up. That was my time. Just run Brighton Marathon. It was later in the year because of COVID, because of obviously all the lockdowns, and I got COVID over Christmas time, and I was very ill, and I was never ill, very ill with it. And I thought, well, this is what it is, it will pass. But it didn't pass. And I went from being able to run marathons to barely being able to walk 100 meters without getting breathless, exhaustion, fatigue. The walk to work is 4 minutes long, and it took me a lot longer than that. And then I had a year of real ill health, chronic pain, chronic fatigue. It was such an awful shock to the system. It wasn't really fair on the kids. They were still young. They needed me. And I managed to work about 2 hours a day. And then I would come home, have to sleep in order to make dinner. I mean, that was just literally my life for a year. The team were amazing. But it also, looking back, I'm still not back to full health, but I'm much stronger, much stronger. So I wonder whether I was a candidate for getting long COVID. Although I was super fit, I was firing on all cylinders at all times. And my body just went, no, you're overdoing it. You really can't put this much pressure on yourself. So it's given me a massive opportunity to look back now. And I'm very, very, my health, I make sure I do something every day for my health so I can, otherwise it was so miserable. But then you realise, it does make you realise who really loves you and who's there for you. And that was a beautiful thing. And it also gave me time to think because, you might be exhausted, but you can think. So again, I went back to the drawing board slightly and learned how to rewire my life. So now there's a lot of, yoga and wellness, short distance running, swimming, just things that I have to do something every day, overhaul my diet, all these things. And I feel, I wouldn't say superhuman, but I feel like a different level now, focus. But I sort of see it as a gift in a way now. It was still 2 years on until I got some proper energy back. So it was pretty grim. But I look at it now and think, yeah, it gave me a good wake up call because there's a lot of life left to live and how to do it properly.
And who knows, the people who got long COVID were vast and varied, weren't they, in terms of their life circumstances? It's quite difficult to conclude. But if to you it was telling you, if how you felt it affected you was to remind you that maybe you might be overdoing it a bit, to put it, But if that's how you saw it, that's all that matters, right? And if that was the wake up that you felt you needed. But talk about adaptation yet again. The black belt of adapters here, having been through it all in 2016, then just a few years later going through it again, different circumstances, different reason, but yet again having to rewrite your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose I quite liked doing that. Where I didn't obviously want to be sick. I mean, the days were agony, pure agony. But I sort of knew at some point I was going to get better. So it's like, a friend was going through cancer at the same time, and I felt that was much more terrifying, obviously for obvious reasons. But I thought, right, well, there's only one way to do this is to rewrite the book again, and thankfully that's worked out really well.
And I guess you've changing the relationship with your body effectively, aren't you? Because it's not the same body, so to speak, as it was.
Yes, I still have complications that aren't very pleasant from long COVID. But yes, I've learned how to do it, and I've learned how to manage the fatigue because it still comes. Nothing like, but it still comes, and you're like, right.
Oh my goodness, what's happening? And not, I'm imagining, learning how to not beat yourself up about it.
Oh no, absolutely. Got to drop all that guilt and like if you're not helping people or you're not serving. It's going to be cheesy. Learning to love yourself. I think I've learned that much more recently than ever before.
And when you say love yourself, what I'm hearing is it's about understanding your limitations and accepting them.
Yes. I've always been a bit I can do everything. Well, I can't, quite frankly. So, yeah, it's learning to understand what you can do and what you can't do. But I'm also, on the flip side, I'm a great believer in we can do amazing things. And I like to push myself sometimes as well. So it's finding the balance without exhausting yourself, because I think we're all capable of doing more than we think we are.
Well, that is so tricky, isn't it? So when I talk about accepting, I don't mean like giving up. I don't mean like, I'm thinking more of listening super carefully for what's possible, pushing it without overextending. It's that, as you say, the balance. And the more attuned we are to our bodies and our minds, the more closely we can relate to that. And perhaps, have you found over time that you are a little more introspective? Has that also happened?
Oh, a huge amount. I think coming through long COVID made me really, because I had the time to, although, you feel really ill, your mind goes all over the place, but it was really helpful in a way, in hindsight, horrible at the time. But you start to think why you do things and what are you doing them for? Why are you doing them? Because I think I went through my life pretty full on and fast and not always thinking about why I was doing things. Maybe it's an age thing as well. Much more reflective now about who, what, why, and just checking in on myself that I'm doing the right thing. Rather than just get right, let's just do it. I can take a step back now.
Yeah. Hang on. Is this what I need?
Yes, listening to myself, learning about myself, knowing my limitations, but also every now and then, come on, you can do this. You can so do this. Yeah.
Yes, reminding yourself of what's possible. I talk about this often, but I think of the kind of path of life, and there's all these twists and turns and branches off and all these different things and things we fall over and stumble upon. And, remembering that it's never straight. Of course it isn't. But somehow, weirdly, we sometimes expect it to be, or we're disappointed if it isn't. And it's really just understanding that, we have to keep listening, don't we? If you were to give any advice to someone who may right now be experiencing something like you did, what would you say?
I would say just take stock of what you've got. Try and step out of the victim mode if possible, because it actually serves nobody and it's very detrimental to yourself. Even to the sake, my lists were a bit of a save. I wrote all the amazing things I had in my life, my family, my children, my team. Although it was all scary, I think if you can just break down to your sort of building blocks that you've got, we've all got something good, and work from there. And I think analyze your why and realize that you can't change it in 5 seconds. I'm a huge, huge fan of incremental steps. I mean, I'm always waffling on about this because, I look back to 9 years ago to where my business is now. So much has happened. It's dramatic, but you couldn't have imagined that you could have got all that done, but you do. So I love writing it down, seeing how much progress I've made in a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year. It's all documented. And then you can see how much you can achieve. So it's not too overwhelming, bit by bit, day by day.
Well, it makes so much sense because also it's the reality of life, isn't it? Our mind might want to do everything at once, but it's not how it works.
No, and then you burn out, and that's not healthy.
No. So clear purpose, clear direction, and clear steps.
Yes. And the other thing I think is facing your fears, because nothing is as bad as you think it's going to be. I'm sure we've all had moments in our life where things are horrific. I've had family members extremely ill and stuff like that. And that's way worse than trying to tackle your business. So I always thought, well, I'd just give it a go. What's the worst could happen? So my risk level definitely went up. And I thought, what have I got to lose? And I think that was quite a powerful feeling. Just try it. Don't be scared. Face your fears.
So, Emma, as you know, I call this podcast Fearless Forward. So, given where you are in your life at the moment, when you look to the future, what does Fearless Forward mean to you?
I guess it means to continue to forge ways in my my career, my industry, being fearless about creating something very, very special. Also, 100% within my family, looking for solutions to help people in it. I think that's quite important to me at the moment. But I think it's being true to myself and listening to those voices and thinking, right, I've been offered some opportunities quite recently, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm thinking, oh, hang on a minute, Emma. Do you actually want to do that, or do you think you've just flattered you've been asked? So I think I'm learning that I'm trying to find the things that give me great joy, and that's definitely my sport, my health, my children, but also my department store. So I think that's where I might be forging my way, and just being very conscious not to be too fearful, because I always say, as long as my family are healthy, what's the worst can happen?
Well, on that note, Emma Draper, thank you so much for joining us today, and lots of good fortune for the exciting developments ahead.
It certainly is. Thank you for having me. I've had a great time.
We've just been listening to the story of a woman finding herself again, whose personal experience of divorce has changed her, as she put it, remarkably for the better, who's recovered her spark and her steeliness, and whose renewed confidence and skills have transformed her from victim to leader. Her business is not only highly successful, it's also become a community hub where everyone is welcome and whose staff stop and listen for what you actually need. From giving out presents every week to the sad and lonely, to raising money for their local food charity, to feeding all the neighbourhood dogs, Emma's business is a force for good, and it's a destination store to which people travel for hundreds of miles. Emma confronted her fear of not being enough for her family and her team, and of letting them all down, and harnessed it to generate the energy to turn herself and her business around. So here are Emma's top tips, in no particular order. As a working parent, don't waste time feeling guilty. Parental guilt is a wasted emotion. You will make mistakes. learn from them. Take stock of things to be grateful for. Slow down, listen for what you need. Take small steps over time. Trying to do too much leads to burnout. Incremental steps make big changes manageable. Identify milestones and celebrate them. Don't believe that your colleagues can't ever be like family. In some cases, they can. Learn how to love yourself by finding the right balance between what you think you can do and what you're actually capable of. Remember to ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? And Emma's key to a life well lived, good relationships, good health, and good balance. Thank you for listening. Fearless Forward is edited and produced by Mark Stedman. I'll be back with you in 2 weeks for our next conversation about how leaders have faced their fears. To be sure of catching it, go to fearlessforward.org, activate push notifications from your favourite podcast source, or subscribe to my weekly bulletin at skillfulleaders.com.